Hello, hello, hello. Do I have the story for you? I, Mr. Starenton, third ranger of my kin, was traveling in the westward regions. As you can see, there were quite a few hills and valleys, but I was more than capable of these steep inclines thanks to my detailed and complex training. Also rope. A lot of rope was used. And I was wandering through these areas, and I saw a creature appeared to me. It was like a beholder. You've heard tales of these beholders, yes? It was like a sphere with these eye things, stalks sticking out of it, and it was looking at me, and I felt fear. And I was with a druidic companion at the time, and he also knew that this was a danger. And then I shot an arrow at it. I was gonna take down a beholder. To be honest, it was probably a pretty stupid thing to do, but let me tell you what happened next. It exploded, and in the wind and in everything, there was like this mist that appeared. The druid called them spores. You see, apparently, this was not a beholder, but instead some sort of mushroomic thing that I'd never heard of. I was never good at mushrooms. I just knew don't eat them because there's a good chance I screw up with which one it was. But apparently, there's a type of mushroom that'll take the form of beholder so that people like me would be stupid enough to attack it. That's what the druid said to me. A bear nearby had inhaled some of the mushrooms, and the druid told me that the bear was gonna die, and I was very sad to hear that. But then we realized something else. There were more mushrooms. They were crawling over this portion of the forest. They were infecting it. And the druid said, "Hey, we need to solve that issue." And I wasn't sure what to do. But I, being a strong, brave ranger, so keen and quick of wit as myself, said, "Very well, how do we remove such a deadly force?" And the druid said to me, he looked at me dead in the eyes, and he said to me, "We're gonna need to find the original source of rot." So as it turns out, these spores spread outward, but they aren't really capable of maintaining the rot to keep spreading forever, at least not most of the time. But sitting at the center of such a spore field, as it was referred to, will normally be a giant source of rot. So all we need to do is show up and burn down that piece of rot. So that's what we set out to do. Now, this journey was quite a struggle. There were bugs everywhere, and the bugs had spores growing out of their heads, and the druid said, "Don't let one bite me," and then one bit me, and it was quite horrible. He gave me something called some sort of berry to try and soothe the pain, and then as you can see, I had to chop a finger off to keep it from getting worse. Yeah, it's quite gross. And then I continued travel. I tell you, I was feeling sick as the spores kind of surrounded us. And we got to the center, and it was the corpse of a dragon. I never thought I'd see one for myself. And I was like, "Yo, we need to gather this. We can get a lot of money if we can start selling the scales, selling the bones. We'll be rich." And the druid said to me, "What is richness if we're letting the spores take over the forest?" And I said, well, I didn't quite agree with him, but I went along, because how am I supposed to counter that argument without sounding like quite the jerk? So we set fire to it. And then we have a problem, because this used to be a fire dragon. So it's immune to the fire. And I know that's the way dragons go. So what do we do? How do we deal with this? Is what I'm trying to figure out with the druid. And he says, "Well, I guess we ought to bury it." I'm like, "Well, how are we gonna bury a dragon?" And we get into an argument. And so what we figure out is to remove the dragon, we need to basically smother it in something. So what we did was we got some ropes, and we kind of tied it up, and we dragged it, and it was a grueling. We dragged it like 5 miles until we got to a nearby river. We just dumped it into the river. And the druid, he clever fellow, he called upon some beavers, and he kind of had a dam built and had to dig a little bit of a trench. That way that the river wouldn't act as a spreader of the mushroom flow. At least that's how he explained it to me. I was a little focused on, getting myself a drink. Yeah, until he slapped my pot out of my hand, and he said, "Hey, you're not allowed to drink." And I'm like, I was real upset. But I digress. So we kind of covered the dragon with a layer of water through the building of basically a artificial lake. And it was really exciting because that meant I had protected the forest. So there we were with the drowning spores. And they started kind of like popping off. And you could see that they were going into the air hoping to find more rock. And suddenly the druid looked at me and was like, we should get going. So as we're going, he seems to get a little sick, and he's coughing and he's hacking, and eventually he kind of falls over. And I was real upset about this. I didn't have really any means of healing him, but I was gonna bury him, and I was gonna say, wow, what a good job this druid did. He saved the forest, now he reunites with the forest. Well, then out of nowhere, his body like twisted and animated, and it started attacking me as if it were some sort of necromancer servant. As it turns out, that's apparently how the fungus goes. And I had to fight that druid, and I'll tell you what, that druid, we used to spar, but he was holding back. Eventually, I beat him by kind of breaking the bones of his dead legs. That way, he couldn't really follow me, and I left. And now here I am, hanging out with all of you folks, and it's great. But man, did that screw with me. The tavern then responded with fear as a series of spores sprung from his throat as he burped. Many of them immediately began to flee the area, and the charlatan was quite pleased with himself and began to collect what goods were left behind. I'd really like to monetize this channel. If you could subscribe, that'd be helpful. Here's another story.